who has the floor.
President, honourable members, Commissioner, we will keep monitoring the humanitarian situation in Afghanistan and also count on your support. The Council remains committed to gender equality and gender-responsive action. We need to counter all forms of discrimination and violence against women and children and ensure accountability. We will maintain the EU engagement with the de facto authorities, but without giving them legitimacy. Through its presence in the country, the EU will continue to support and engage with the Afghan people. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have received 8 motions for resolutions to wind up this debate, and with that, the debate is closed, and the vote will be held on Thursday. Then we are moving to the next item on the agenda. That is the Council and Commission statement, the new strategy EU-India agenda. And the first intervention will be coming from the Commission, from Commissioner Labib. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, honourable members of the European Parliament again. We are in a transformative moment for EU-India relations. The visit of the College of Commissioners to India in February 2025 was not a ceremonial diplomacy. It led to the foundation of a renewed strategic partnership shaped for the 21st century. I am honoured to present our new strategic EU-India agenda, an agenda that turns proximity of values into proximity of action. Why now? Because our interests and our responsibilities converge. India, the world's largest democracy and a powerhouse of growth, matters profoundly to Europe's security, prosperity and resilience. And Europe, India's trusted partner in rules, standards and investment, matters profoundly to India's inspirations. This is not just about cooperation between two regions. This is about two democratic powers joining forces to shape a more secure, prosperous and sustainable world. Together, we represent nearly a quarter of global GDP and population. Together, we can move to global needle. Europe and India are also converging by necessity. Recent wars, great power rivalry and fragile supply chains are forcing both to adapt. Europe is de-risking after Russia's aggression. India seeks reliable partners without formal alignment. What unites us? Secure sea lanes, resilient infrastructure, trusted technology and climate-compatible growth. Two big democracies partnering where it matters. Market access, clean energy, safe technology and connectivity that closes strategic distances. Because the world offers no softer alternative choice. Our agenda rests on 5 pillars that I will detail. First, prosperity and sustainability. The EU is India's largest trading partner. India is our largest partner in the global south. We aim to conclude a high-ambition free trade agreement by the end of this year, unlocking new flows of trade investment. Through Global Gateway, we are mobilising billions for clean energy, digital networks and sustainable transport. Prosperity without sustainability is short-lived. Our clean energy and climate partnership on green hydrogen, offshore wind and energy efficiency will accelerate the transition and create good jobs on both continents. Second, technology and innovation. The future will belong to those who shape standards and scale breakthrough. Our EU-India innovation hubs will connect labs, startups and industry on AI, semiconductors and quantum. Through Horizon Europe, we open more doors for joint research that solves global problems from health to climate to secure connectivity. Third, security and defence. In a world of hybrid threats, coercion and contested seas, we will deepen consultations, expand maritime domain awareness and conduct more joint exercises. In the Indo-Pacific, we stand for a free, open and rules-based maritime order that benefits all. Fourth, connectivity and global issues. The India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, will future-proof supply chains and unite our regions more closely together. Our trilateral projects from Africa to South Asia will deliver reliable infrastructure, solar power and disaster-resilient systems, partnering where we add the most value. Fifth, the human enablers. Our partnership is powered by people. The first pilot European legal gateway office in India will make skilled mobility simpler and safer. Our education and skills dialogue will deepen links between universities and training systems. The vibrant Indian diaspora in Europe already shows what we can achieve together. All this sits within a wider commitment to defend the UN Charter, support Ukraine's sovereignty, counter terrorism and organised crime, reform multilateral institutions and deliver on the Paris Agreement. This is a partnership of democratic resilience, not against any one country, but for a world governed by rules, dignity and opportunity. Today, we choose to turn a shared agenda into shared outcomes. Let us get to work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Now, David McAllister. Mr. David McAllister has the floor for 1.5 minutes representing the EPP group and also our chair on the Foreign Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Commissioner. It is indeed now 3 weeks ago that the European Commission presented the joint communication on a new strategic EU-India agenda. It entails more than 60 concrete deliverables. This is welcome. I can underline what the Commissioner said. India is indispensable for Europe's global reach and resilience. However, dear colleagues, let us be cautious. The European Union sometimes tends to overpromise. It is not the scale of our commitments, but our capacity to see them through that will in the end define our credibility. India is in some ways a strategic litmus test for the European Union. It doesn't fit neatly into our categories of like-minded partner. The world's most populous country is not, has never been, willing to be bound by traditional alliances. Instead, India pursues cooperation à la carte, guided by its own national interests. This poses a challenge, but also an opportunity for the European Union. If we act pragmatically, we can build real progress in 3 key areas. First, trade and technology, where a free trade agreement could open vast opportunities. Second, connectivity and clean energy, where India's growth and our global gateway align. And third, security and defence, where our joint maritime operation in the Indian Ocean already points the way forward. So, dear Commission, less rhetoric, more delivery. Only then can the EU-India partnership live up to its striving potential. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Maniatis has the floor for 1 minute representing S&D Group.
Thank you, Chair. Colleagues, India is one of the most important countries in Asia. With a constantly growing economy, it will be the 3rd bigger in the world by 2030. Last January, the communication about our new strategic agenda has been a new positive step. I hope we will have a mutually profitable agreement on a geopolitical level as well, including issues concerning the environment, sustainability, and human rights. India remains one of the most important trade partners of Russia. And after the recent tariffs by the US, we have seen a new rapprochement between India and China that has surprised many of us. So we need a comprehensive EU strategy for a new partnership that will upgrade the relations with India. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's the turn for Mr. Mariani for 2 minutes, representing Patriots.
Dans la nouvelle architecture.
In this new architecture of Narendra Modi's India, elected in 2014, 2019 and 2024, India is a rising global power. Faced against China, India extends its hand for cooperation, but the European Union neglected the EU-India partnership for too long. India is far behind China and the United States when it comes to trade relations, which is a shame, because the BRICS are an empire in economic and trade terms. Today, the European Commission is proposing a roadmap to conclude an agreement, and that goes in the right direction. But the European Union doesn't want a facade or an empty partnership. We want concrete agreements on technology and energy, but also a commitment on fighting Islamist terrorism. And that is crucial if we're going to open the doors to trade with the fourth largest economy worldwide. We need to have this without conditions, without compromises, and with equitable compensation. We must extend a hand of friendship to Mr. Modi without any overtones of paternalism or arrogance, on an equal footing, and that's the only way we're going to strengthen ties with this rising global power.
For Mrs. Gosiewska, for 1 minute, presenting ECR.
Dziękuję. Dyskutujemy o nowej strategii.
Thank you very much. Today we are speaking about the new strategic EU-India agenda, a country that on the one hand is an economic and technological power, but on the other hand it is a country that is pursuing policies that do not comply with what the EU foundations are. We cannot pretend not to see the fact that India became one of the main recipients of Russian oil, which in effect means supporting the aggression against Ukraine. The situation changed after the U.S., under the leadership of Donald Trump, imposed a 25% tariff to clearly show the economic cooperation cannot come at the expense of principles and security. So how can we have these ambitious policies? How can we have a common policy when India has huge social issues, huge inequality, caste system, social inequality, and what about women and women's rights? How will Europe be able to build cooperation when women are systematically marginalized and discriminated against, and when violence is frequently wrought against women with impunity? And what about a security and defense policy with a country that has close relations with Russia? So the EU strategy, do we actually have common values, Madam Commissioner? Thank you.
Yes, for Mrs. Hang, for 1 minute and a half, representing Renew Europe Group.
Liebe Kolleginnen und Kollegen,
colleagues, well, China is expanding its authoritarian influence. The United States is also elbowing its way in on this earth, and Europe doesn't really know exactly what its place is, and therefore our position and relationship with India is important. Geopolitical strength depends on competitiveness. No growth, no sovereignty. Every single trade agreement is a step towards European strength. If we want to be relevant and remain relevant, we need to negotiate. And we are already the largest trade partner, and let us expand this through this trade agreement. Partnership rather than separate and fragmented relationships. Our businessmen need new markets. If Europe wants to grow, it needs to think and believe in itself, its companies, its people, its ideas. So that is why I say quite clearly, if you block trade, you're blocking the future of Europe. If you're afraid of competition, at the end of the day, will basically mean to dismantling wealth in Europe and influence in the world. So, colleagues, let us no longer speak. Let us start acting with India for Europe and for our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's a turn for Mr. Previlik for 1 minute representing Greens.
Spoštovane kolegice, cenjeni kolegi.
Colleagues, the new strategic agenda for the European Union and India is based on a vision of a partnership. Given the role of India in the region, we're seeing India, of course, as a big democracy, a major and growing global economy, and so the European Union can't afford to exclude India. We need India in the field of energy and innovation. As rapporteur for India, I call for the negotiations to be wrapped up before the end of this year. We can focus on energy and renewable energy, and together we can try to ensure that we have renewable energy for households and businesses alike. At a time when we need to build a stable future, we find ourselves at a situation where we need concrete actions and a new path forward.
Stoyanov for 1 minute representing Europe's Sovereign Nations Group.
Благодаря, господин председател, госпожо комисар. Индия е един от
Chair Commissioner, India is one of the main global players. They are pragmatic in their external policy. They have the best interest of their citizens at heart. They have an open dialogue with everybody, with Russia, with China. They keep on being modernized. They have huge infrastructure projects that create opportunities for European companies. The cooperation in digital technologies, in the pharmaceutical industry and other sectors could help us have new opportunities. Our new agreement could provide a lot of opportunities if we are equal partners. They have a lot of their strength stemming from their cultural and religious background, and this is our most valuable lesson there. We should not lecture other people. We should respect our own roots and our Christian values.
Thank you very much. Now it's a turn for Mr. Serva for 1 minute and a half.
Mr. Chairman, dear Commissioner, colleagues, for 20 years we have called the EU-India relationship a strategic partnership, yet too often it has been words without delivery. India is on track to become the world's third largest economy by 2030, but security must be at the center. India still relies on Russian-made weapons for more than half of its arsenal. Europe should help reduce that dependence through technology transfer and defence cooperation, but only under strict conditions. In Amendment together with David McAllister on common security, foreign and security policy, we stress stronger security ties, joint naval exercises, links between the Indian Navy and EU missions, and a security of information agreement by 2026. But the key, clear rules. Measurable targets, annual progress reports and suspension triggers if India moves closer to Russian military structures. I must raise a serious concern. India joined the Russian-Belarusian Zapad 2025 exercise, a 65% Indian contingent trained alongside 100,000 troops, including simulated nuclear and cross-border operations. This casts doubt on India's shift away from Moscow. The EU cannot deepen security ties with a partner that still joins Russian-led war games while Russia frightened our neighborhood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ahora es el turno para...
I'd now like to give the floor to Mr. Sanchez Amorro. 1 minute, please. Thank you, President. Well, this framework is really a clear example of foreign policies. We look for partners with a sign right on our forehead saying we are desperate. We are looking for friends. And our partners or interlocutors know this. That is really not a good point of departure for this type of negotiation. Another limitation. You know, we negotiate with a threat because our interlocutors can find other allies, other sponsors, and they can move to the dark side. That is another weakness that everyone exploits. So it's not surprising to see that these new types of agreements, our souls, our value, our principles disappear. And we don't want to put anything in these papers that could bother the other side. I mean, I'm not even talking about violence against religious minorities or imprisonment, but not even the ILO agreements. No mention to development. It's pure realpolitik and no proximity values. So, you know, the union, which is introverted, which is has walled in, protected and free, the major Switzerland. Is that what we want?
For Mrs. Maréchal, for 1 minute.
Chers collègues, colleagues, in a world where we have China pitted against the U.S., then Europe has all the interest to have an increased cooperation with India. Security first and foremost. India, like us, has an Islamic threat that is intense, and therefore we should take inspiration from Modi. Also, in defense, they have a nuclear weapon, meaning that they have an enormous amount of importance placed on autonomy by purchasing Rafales and Scorpions as well, and we should continue to assist in energy as well. It's an industrial power, an emerging one. India is investing much in decarbonized energy. The nuclear sector is still quite timid. Let us work with New Delhi to build nuclear plants. That should be a priority. And entrained, finally. India is protecting its market, but Europe is opening its market, but without any serious offsetting. So to have cooperation with India, we must not be disingenuous the way that we have seen the European Commission has been for far too long.
Now it's the turn for Mr. Cohen for 1 minute.
Thank you. After 2 decades of on-off negotiations, the EU-India trade talks are finally nearing conclusion. The 14th round of negotiations begins this week, and personally I am honoured myself to have accepted an invitation to join the European Parliament's International Trade Committee delegation to India later this month as we enter a decisive phase. This deal carries vast economic promise. India is now the world's fastest growing large economy and home to 1.5 billion people, a market of enormous potential for European and indeed Irish exporters. My own country's whisky exports to India, for example, have grown tenfold in 5 years, while our dairy, pharma, medtech and nutrition sectors are ready to do similar once barriers are lifted. But this partnership is about more than trade alone. It's about Europe's place in a rapidly changing world. As the United States turns inwards and Russia and China grow more assertive, deepening ties with India and others is essential to strengthen global stability and ensure Europe remains an active shaper rather than a passive observer of the century ahead. Yet, like many other trade agreements, it must be fair. We must defend high European standards, including protecting our farmers and ensuring sustainability commitments are real. An ambitious, forward-looking deal can work for both sides, strengthening Europe's resilience while opening new doors for the likes of Irish business. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now it's the turn for Mr. Sell for 1 minute.
Indische Raffinerien laufen auf Hochtouren.
Well, the 10 million barrels of oil that have been exported, India is making a lot of money through the export of Russian oil. And it's also businesses in our refineries are not active at all. So I think we're paying too much of a price, really, with our agreement with India. Modi has good relationships with Washington, Berlin, Paris, but also with Moscow and Beijing. And that is true sovereignty. I think we should really take example from them, but we shouldn't give them any moral lessons on climate change or anything else, because the ridiculous ideology from Brussels should not be passed on to this trade agreement, because this is an important trade partner.
Very much. Now is the turn for Mr. Hansen for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair. Dear Commissioner, for more than 100 years ago, Albert Einstein reminded us that we owe a lot to the Indians. They taught us how to count, without which no worldwide scientific discovery could ever have been made. We have admired and learned from each other for centuries. Now we must turn shared knowledge into shared prosperity. It's high time to conclude a modern free trade and investment agreement, opening markets, protecting investors and setting standards the world will follow. We must secure supply chains from critical raw materials to resilient manufacturing so both economies can thrive. On security, let us engage with clear eyes. India will pursue its own interests, but deeper ties with Russia will not serve its long-term stability. Instead, let's expand maritime, cyber and defence industrial cooperation between democracies that believe in a rule-based order. Together, we can lead in technology, AI, semiconductors and mobile networks, and connect our startups from Bangalore to Berlin. And now we can drive the green transition, renewables, green hydrogen, sustainable finance and through the global gateway. Europe and India has traded ideas for centuries. Today, our trade is not only in goods, it's in hopes. A hope for a more connected and more sustainable and more peaceful world. Let's build the future together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now it's the turn for Mr. Benifei for 1 minute.
In just a few weeks' time, the International Trade Committee of the European Parliament will go to New Delhi. It's a crucial moment for the future of our strategic partnership in a global context, with an uptick in protectionism in the supply chains. And cooperation, therefore, is a strategic choice to strengthen our industrial fabric on both sides. It's important to have negotiations for a FTA that is balanced, ambitious, and reciprocal, that is also based on binding commitments in human rights and the environment and labor conditions. We need to have industrial cooperation, fight dumping, non-tariff burdens that have a negative impact on some sectors, including steel and aluminium. The safeguard mechanisms for steel, as put forth by the Commission, are a huge step forward to defend European industry. It is an essential condition to make sure that we have the same conditions in global trade. And it's extremely important in this dialogue with India. Clear rules, common rules, a shared vision. That is the only way that we will be able to have a strong partnership, a veritable pact for a fairer partnership that the world definitely needs.
Thank you very much. Now is the turn for Mr. Gothi for 1 minute.
Chair, Commissioner, Europe and India share vital interests and face similar challenges. We both push to rethink and relaunch multilateralism, starting with the reform of the UN. We have both a strong interest in contributing to global stability. We should also push India to rethink its relationship with Russia and to be very careful with its recent openings towards China. We are both convinced that strategic autonomy is a key element of our sovereignty. And we both need to renew and differentiate our trade relationship. This is why we must intensify our effort to reach a trade agreement before the end of the year. And we must strengthen our cooperation in the Indian Ocean, also fully exploiting the potential of our European outermost regions like La Réunion. Last but certainly not least, we must deepen our dialogue on artificial intelligence and digital issues. I am convinced that after the success of the AI Summit in Paris, the new AI Summit in Delhi can be a turning point for our bilateral relationship and for our common global digital action. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now is the turn for Mr. Mandel for 1 minute.
Thank you very much, President, Commissioner, colleagues. While here in the European Parliament we have to discuss and vote on confidence votes against our Commission's presidents from the extreme right and from the extreme left, which is already kind of a shame. The Commission's president has just visited India and reached out for a prosperous future cooperation. And there are not many things sustainably so important as this. The reason is India is not only the biggest country on earth, it's also the country where Europe can prove its strength to the outside in the very fields we Europeans care of. I've already fought my election campaigns with the clear message I want to thrive for Europe with more strength to the outside and more freedom to the inside, of course. And India, in terms of labour, in terms of people, in terms of education, in terms of skills, and in all the many other fields colleagues have already mentioned, from technology to security, is and will remain and even become more an important partner for us Europeans. So let's go for it.
Thank you very much. Ahora es el turno para Cristina Maestre.
Cristina Maestre for 1 minute, please. Thank you, President. Members, the geopolitical situation shows that people are breaking ties rather than building bridges, and therefore a new strategic EU-India agenda is important. We need stable, trustworthy partners. We need supply chains, but we also need to make sure that we don't just strengthen economic links, but also sustainability, democracy, social issues. There should be a commitment to human rights and the respect of rule of law and the environment. Now, look, I think that having an FTA by the end of the year is science fiction. There are issues that are so important, for example, farms, the automotive industry, where we know that India has huge protectionism. Therefore, it's going to be extremely complicated. And also, Russia is the elephant in the room. Commissioner, I think that we, yes, should have an agreement, try to reach an agreement, but we should not shift our approach to others' approaches. We should look at our strategic needs and let us be extremely clear what our red lines are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Eroğlu has the floor for 1 minute.
Ja, sehr geehrter Herr Vizepräsident.
Honourable Vice President, Commissioner Laib, thank you so much for your contributions. It's precisely as you said. We, as European Commission, as European Parliament, we want to try and bring our relationship with India to a higher level. Of course, this step has been taken much too late. We should have been cooperating with India, and we've been saying this in the Parliament and in the Member States, but we have ignored this. But let us be credible. Of course, we want to cooperate with India. Of course, we would like to see India as the largest democracy, and we want them to further to develop with us, but a win-win situation. But our credibility must not be lost. If we have sanctions against half the world because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. I mean, we need to be consistent with India, and our credibility as democrats must not be lost. So try to get a good agreement with India. We in the Parliament will support you.
Very much, Mr. Eroglu. Mr. Eroglu, you have a blue card coming from Mr. Sieber. If you want to accept it. Yeah, then it's your turn.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. In accordance with our rules of procedure, I would also like to be able to react to the reply that my colleague will give me. Vielen Dank, Herr Kollege.
Thank you. Thank you for accepting the blue card this time. I listened very carefully to what you said, and you said that we needed to deepen our relations with India. Do you agree with me that we need to do this in part also to re-establish a balance vis-à-vis the rising dominance of China in that region, especially given your position as delegation chief?
Yes, that's a really good point, Mr. Sipa. I know that amongst the BRICS countries, we have seen that there have been certain countries coming close, but we did make the mistake because we haven't treated India properly in the past. And that is why I say quite clearly, we, with India, which has similar values as ourselves, not the same, but similar, we need to have closer relationships. We need this free trade agreement, but our credibility must not be lost. Because if we lose our credibility at the end of the day, we'll lose our democracy. And that is something that needs to be defended, both in India and in China.
Sipper, I would remind you that it's not your right to have an answer, but extraordinary. I will give you 30 seconds to answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice President. Herr Kollege,
My dear colleague, I could agree with what you've said. I would have been very pleased to hear an actual answer to my question. But reading between the lines of what you said, I take it that we are on the same line. And credibility will depend on a number of things. If we cooperate more closely with India, then we shouldn't turn a blind eye to those things that prevented us from cooperating more closely in the past. So human rights, consumer protection, and all the other issues that are related to European values. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. After this fruitful conversation, we move to Mr. Johnski for 1 minute.
Bardzo dziękuję, panie przewodniczący.
Thank you very much, President. I am so pleased that we are looking at this partnership with India, and I think it's important for us to ring-fence the interests of the EU and its members, specifically in one sector. In ceramics, 100,000 people work in this sector in Poland. And tariffs in India are extremely low compared to China, and therefore we fear dumping of ceramics in Europe. Therefore, we need to have a level playing field. Madam Commissioner, much like with China, I hope that we will establish a tariff, an anti-dumping tariff to protect an extremely important sector of ceramic tiles, ceramics in general. That will be very important for the competitiveness of the European industry. Thank you.
Has the floor for 1 minute.
President, Commissioner, the new strategic agenda of EU-India is a good step forward to bring the two largest democracies worldwide closer in areas such as defence. In times when the power lines are being redefined and redrawn globally, we have shared interests not only in economic terms but in geopolitical terms as well. So the free trade agreement will help to secure supply chains for the European Union, secure autonomy and increase our presence in the region. It's going to be key for economic and security autonomy in the future. The free trade agreement is of utmost importance for the European Union. India is a key actor in the region, and we will conclude key agreements that need to, in addition to agreements with China and the United States. We have to have these agreements concluded on the basis of shared interests and shared values, so when it comes to human rights and climate change objectives. As previous speakers have already said, we need to respect the values that we defend here in this House. Thank you.
Mr. Løkkegaard, for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioner. Lad os slå det fast fra starten af.
Let's make one thing clear from the beginning. Europe and India both need a trade agreement. Full stop. It's about strengthening the European economy, but also about getting closer ties with India in an unsafe world. India is, as stated, the biggest democracy in the world and is a country that is growing rapidly. So a stronger partnership with India will obviously strengthen our green transition and help millions of Indians get out of poverty, which is positive for everyone, I imagine, even here in the European Parliament, where we tend to disagree about a lot of things. So, as in the previous mandate period, I learned a lot of things. I learned that it's important to speak other people's language, culturally and politically, because India is a proud and ambitious people who want partnerships instead of charity. So, if we want good results, we must meet them as equal partners, and it will take time. But let's not be naive. India might be extending a hand towards Europe, but they keep the other hand with a firm grip around Russia and China. So there are quite a number of challenges ahead of us. But of course we must be aware that India will make demands as well. But let's get on with it. Let's finalize this deal, because I believe that it will deliver positive results. Thank you so much.
In today's increasingly multipolar and complex world, the European Union benefits from cultivating strong and reliable partnerships in order to continue serving as a global standard bearer for liberal democracy. India, soon to be the world's third largest economy, stands out as a natural partner in this effort. The strategic agenda of the upcoming free trade agreement will help to solidify a diverse and complementary relationship. European farmers and businesses can benefit from India's massive demand for dairy products, digital services and pharmaceuticals, to name but a few areas. Additionally, the planned legal migration pathways in the agenda should be welcomed and used as a template for controlled skilled migration, which our businesses and health services badly need. While differences remain, including over India's ties with Russia, that provide a further justification for cultivating a closer friendship with India. Protecting Ukraine and protecting Europe remain the top priority, but delivering a strong partnership with India is the most desirable aspiration.
Thank you very much. Now it's your turn for Mr. Vigenin for 1 minute.
Commissioner, colleagues, today we discuss the partnership between the two largest democratic unions in the world. That's the European Union and the Indian Union. Our relationship has flourished over the years, yielding remarkable achievements in trade, investment, scientific collaboration and cultural exchange. Now, in a rapidly changing world, it is imperative that the European Union and India deepen their cooperation in critical areas that will shape the future. Our commitment to peace, respect for international law, multilateralism and a rules-based international order must be unwavering. Together we can champion diplomacy, foster stability and uphold the principles that have long ensured global security and prosperity. Climate change remains an existential threat. Our partnership in clean energy, sustainable development and environmental protection is crucial for securing a livable planet for future generations. The artificial intelligence presents both tremendous opportunities and significant risks. By aligning our approaches to regulate it, the EU and India can ensure AI development is ethical, transparent and respects fundamental rights. As digital technologies underpin every aspect of our societies, we also must work together to build resilient digital infrastructures and establish common standards to protect privacy and security. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now is the turn for Mr. Altola for 1 minute.
President, Commissioner, at a time of profound geopolitical change, strengthening EU-India relations is a strategic imperative. If we have any strategic sense left, we will move towards that goal. India has been and should continue to be a counterweight to China. India, world's fastest growing major economy, the largest democracy, is a natural partner in building resilience, diversifying trade and shaping a more balanced global order. The EU-India Free Trade Agreement lies at the core of this effort. Yet, partnership cannot come at the expense of principles. India's continued engagement with Russia, a regime waging a war of aggression against the European state, must be addressed openly. A true partnership is built on trust, responsibility and a shared vision for global stability.
Thank you very much. Now is the turn for Mr. Siodras for 1 minute.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioner, colleagues. In a world that is radically changing, the European Union must redefine its position. The cooperation between the EU and the US does not have the form it used to have, but it must not be disrupted in spite of difficulties. At the same time, we have to look at other places around the world where there are emerging powers. At the beginning of the year, I participated in the delegation of the Inter Committee that visited India, and I had the opportunity to see economic progress in many sectors. I saw how European businesses attach importance to the Indian side, and on the other hand, India attaches importance to their cooperation with Europe. The corridor India, Middle East, Europe will be to the benefit of European businesses and European citizens. This cooperation must respect European quality and security standards and provide true access to markets. Thank you.
Turn for Mrs. Wintig for 1 minute.
Sehr geehrter Herr Präsident.
President, Commissioner. Since 2004, we've been strategic partners with India, but at the same time, we have clear differences of opinion, whether it's about Russian fossil fuels or military exercises in Belarus and Russia. The fact that we're seeing a far-reaching geopolitical change is relevant here. India, with its educated population, has a lot of potential for cooperation with Europe. The free trade agreement with India is something we should tackle urgently now. With its new strategic agenda, we're laying down the foundation for a far-reaching partnership that is going to be valuable both economically and in terms of the technology. Thank you.
For 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. President, Madam Commissioner. The new strategic EU-India agenda is a timely and adequate response to the process of weakening of multilateralism and fragmentation of the international order. The geopolitical competition between the United States and China is reshaping trade and international relations, affecting all of us. Therefore, if we don't want to remain a mere spectator, we need to adapt and move fast. It is in that context that we need to understand this new approach to India, as well, for example, as the strategic partnership with Latin America that we will discuss later on. Of course, we are aware that there are areas of disagreement with India, a BRICS founding member. Yet, if we manage to get with India an FTA, to boost defence and technology cooperation, to improve connectivity, current differences could be overcome by the geopolitical gains of a mutually beneficial relationship. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be back. Mr. Kohut, please.
Pani komisarz, z liczbami trudno.
Commissioner, it's hard to hide statistics in the EU. 450 million population, India 1.5 billion. So we can't be selfish. Digital lockdown, the Russian war of aggression, the world is changing under our eyes. And therefore, we need stable democracies, strong democracies that can stand up to authoritarian regimes. We need India by our side. It is a country that experienced colonialism that forced them to change their way of life. Therefore, it is surprising to see them buying Russian oil, Russia being a colonial power, as it were. We hope that India will realize that. Mr. Lopakta, please.
India is one of the world's fastest growing major economies, with GDP growth of more than 7% in the first half of this year. Their demographic strength, rising technological capabilities, and also their big economy shows how important this country is. For the EU, a new strategic agenda with India can offer opportunities in trade and investment. As India's global influence rises, so do its responsibilities towards stability, peace, and respect for a rule-based world order. And here, India must show that India is going the way we did already. They have to diversify their energy supplies away from Russia. Europe has undertaken this painful but necessary shift, and I think we have to discuss it with India, that they also reduce their dependence on Russia. India and the EU are natural partners, how I see it. Democracies with shared interests and a global reach. Thank you.
Grazie. Thank you very much. Ms. Niebler, please.
Vielen Dank, Frau Präsidentin.
Thank you, President, Commissioner, colleagues. India is not merely a fascinating country, but also for us Europeans, it's going to be a very close strategic partner. 1.4 billion people, fourth largest economy. Everything speaks in favour of us intensifying our ties with this country. So I welcome the new strategic agenda. I wish the Commission every success with the free trade agreement negotiations to conclude that by the end of this year. And my dear colleagues, we need to step up cooperation in other areas, in technology, security and defence, aviation, and all of these are indeed in the pipeline, and that's good. Strategic partners and friends can speak to each other openly and broach difficult topics. Other colleagues have mentioned this. Issues to do with Russia, Belarus, and human rights issues. All of these issues are topics that we must broach. But first and foremost, we need to establish close ties, close cooperation, so that we can then have an open and intensive exchange on those topics that are particularly close to our hearts as well.
Passiamo ora al catch the eye. Now we will move on to the catch the eye procedure. Mr. McNamara, please.
The microphone, just a minute.
Is that working? Yes, thank you, Madam Vice President, Madam Commissioner, colleagues. At this time when Instability and change are the only constants. I think it is vital that the European Union look across the world and try to reach out to countries with which it shares values and look to accentuate that which it shares rather than accentuate differences. India has much in common with the European Union and its member states. It cherishes democracy, it cherishes rule of law, it has done since its foundation. It also builds its future on education, trying to move forward, trying to build technology. In that regard, with regard to rule of law, it shares a common law legal system with at least one member state, namely my own. But I think in looking to develop a future with India, it would be really foolhardy of us to lecture India on where it should position itself in the geopolitics of the world. India has always pursued a middle way. When there were revolutions and wars on its frontiers, it pursued a middle way. It will pursue its own course, whether we like it or not. The question is whether we can respect and value India as much as it deserves as a trading partner to be respected and valued. Not lecture and hector to it, but rather to respect it and try to move forward together and to accentuate that which we share rather than our differences. Thank you for the opportunity to contribute.
Now, on behalf of the Commissioner, I'd like to give the floor to Commissioner Labib, please.
Madam President, honourable members, today's debate shows the importance and challenges also lying ahead of EU-India relations. But one thing is very clear. 60 years after establishing diplomatic ties, Europe and India are ready to write a new chapter, practical, ambitious and accountable as well. Our joint communication is not a manifesto to be framed, it is a plan to be implemented. While in the coming days we will adopt the Council conclusions on India, we will soon propose a joint EU-India comprehensive strategic agenda for adoption at our next summit, which will demonstrate the commitment of our Indian partners to this joint cooperation. This partnership goes beyond business or tech. It backs open societies and markets, open science, clean energy for growth, secure seas for trade and mobile talent that can learn and thrive. India's success strengthens Europe. Europe's success supports India. And our success together strengthens something larger still, a rules-based international order where sovereignty is respected, climate goals are met, and prosperity is broadly shared. However, we do not ignore the challenges ahead. Yes, India is an important importer of Russian oil. India's participation in the Zapat military exercise, albeit at a much lower level than originally planned. Our concerns have been directly communicated to the Indian authorities. And at the same time, the Commission is convinced that engagement is the right way forward. Prime Minister Modi, in a recent call with our President, reaffirmed that India opposes Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. And that now is the moment to deepen cooperation with Europe. So the 21st century will be shaped by the partnerships that dare to deliver. So let us choose delivery over rhetoric. The future is EU-India and the future begins now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, Madam. The debate is closed. Now, we will move to the next item on the agenda, which is the report by Mr. Stier, EU Political Strategy on Latin America. And we will give the floor directly to the rapporteur, Mr. Stier. Go ahead, sir.
President, thank you, Commissioner. With this resolution, we will be defining the priorities and sending out a message from the European Parliament to the next EU-CELAC summit. In a world of less multilateralism and more fragmentation, Latin America cannot be excluded from our strategic thinking. On the contrary, we need to understand Latin America as a natural ally with which we share centuries of